building a successful operation that is capable of fulfilling the exciting market's massive potential.
Hello everybody, my name is Jeremiah Maangi. I'm working with the Bizin Africa Group, and we are helping organizations to venture into the African market, and especially the betting companies. And on stage today, I'm joined by Purity Wahio, the operations manager at PalmsBet Kenya, and also a consultant, John Kamau, who can also help you in this industry. So I'll also give them time to introduce themselves, and then we can start.
All right. My name is John Kamau. I'm working with BetConsult. I'm also working with Sigma to plan the event. Been working with Sigma for the last 4 years, wanting to have Sigma come to Kenya. It's such a success to have you today. I'm very proud. And yes, thank you.
Thank you, Purity.
Hello everyone, my name is Purity Wahio, the operations manager at PalmsBet. We are the operators. We do sportsbook betting, both online and casino gaming. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks guys for joining us to discuss this interesting conversation, mostly touching on investments in Africa. And I believe that most people in this room must be investors, because this really is a discussion you need to listen to. So probably, Purity, you can introduce us by telling us what factors should investors who want to invest in the African continent consider so that they can have a successful business here. What should they have that is really necessary according to your experience and the practice you've had in the industry?
Thank you. So for the investors to be able to invest in the African market, I guess the key thing is, first of all, doing your market research, ensuring that you've gathered all the information about the country that you want to invest in, how they do it, including the licensing, because that is the first part on the regulations. You get familiar with how the application will be done for the licensing, the requirements, and also the type of people that will be having. For the operators, you need to know the type of sportsbook you should be having, especially on their providers, because for the African market, they need something that is simple, light, and something that is user-friendly to each and everyone. Also, the regulators, you need to have as in detailed information, because that is where you get all the advisory, other than also working with the consultants who will help you in the licensing parts. And also on the setup, do you really need to do the online, or you want to do the retail, and all the requirements that you need for you to be able to do a successful business. Another thing is also on the payment solution, because that is also key, because for the African market, it's not all market that are doing crypto or Visa. Mostly they do the mobile payment. So you need also to get information on that, so that you can have a successful investment.
Thank you for that. I think John should come in and review what you've talked about, especially on the investors doing research so that they can know the market well. So probably, John, you can tell us, based on your experience and the companies you've worked with, probably without mentioning names, what are some of the common mistakes these guys are making, or the investors are making, when they are trying to invest in the different sectors in the African continent? Because as Purity has said, Africa is a big country, and we have different tastes and preferences. And you cannot just do your research online and say that you have done enough. And that's why she has talked about engaging with consultants. So John and I, being consultants in the industry, what are some of these common mistakes the investors are making that they should avoid so that they can build a successful business here?
Thank you. The first mistake that investors do, assuming for the last few years, most of the softwares that have been in use in Africa have come from Europe. And if you can check, most of the exhibitors here are from Europe. there is a mistake most operators make, believing that a product that works in Europe works in Africa, which is very wrong. So Africa is different. From the product, you need to see the product in the sense of accessibility. What is the mobile penetration rate in every country? What is the internet penetration rate? And also for the mobile penetration rate, you need to check on the vendors. Because in Europe, iPhone and Samsung take over 80%. In Africa, we have phones that you've never heard of, Techno and Infinix. They take over 40%. And these phones they are more feature phones. You would say it's a smartphone, but it's much of a feature phone. And in all these devices, also touching on accessibility, is the browsers. We have high-end browsers that Chrome is 64% used in Europe. In Africa, it's almost half. Opera Mini is big, and Chrome is big, and other high-end browsers like Safari. So the issue here in Africa is all these feature phones have their default browser as Opera Mini. So if your site is not accessible through Opera Mini, and Opera Mini is almost over 45% of users who are using it here, your product is already ineffective. Every campaign that you run is already ineffective by 45%. Because their default browser is Opera Mini, so whenever they try to log into your site to play your games, they can't. So that is one. You also need to take every market individually. Kenya is not Uganda, Uganda is not Tanzania. In Kenya, because of mobile money and internet penetration, we are very far from our neighbors. In Kenya, online gambling is the highest, and retail is not as big. I don't think there is an operator in Kenya who has more than 200 shops. All of them are very less shops. But you go to Uganda, there are thousands of shops. That is the difference. So you need to tackle this market accessibility. How many people are online? How many are offline? And I'll give you an example. There have been companies that have been big in Kenya. And one of the reasons why these companies were able to be big is because of accessibility in terms of USSD and SMS betting. While all these other operators were fighting for the online market, this operator was doing the offline bit of it. And they kind of got to be like a monopoly in the market because they were able to do even newspapers, they can do odds there, punters can take the codes. In the villages, they can print out the codes and sell them actually in cyber cafes. So it was big. It was a market on its own and it was very big. So accessibility is one. The other thing about mistakes that these guys do is to come to Africa and you want to do high-end marketing immediately. You need to make sure that the software is good. Before you do massive traffic to that software, you need to take time with it. You need, if you're in Kenya, to Kenyanize it. You need to make sure that the platform relates well with the common community, because we are all Erites. But majority of guys who will be gambling on your site are low-income earners and probably guys from the slums. So you need to now Kenyanize your product, or if you're in Uganda, to make sure that it fits that market so that you're able to sell it out. So you need to see what competitors are doing. And still touching on accessibility, there are sites that are very big here in Africa, but they've decided not to concentrate on PC sites, only the mobile site. So even when you're opening the sites on PC, they will still fit only on the middle part of the site, of the window, because their main concentration is mobile. Over 95% of your stakes, they will come from mobile. So accessibility are more of product oriented, and I think the product is first issue. Marketing is easy, the product is the issue.
So Kenyanizing your product is the word. And since you mentioned on retail, I don't know if Purity is going to accept that the fact that most retail company or the biggest business here is online. I want to see, like, for offline companies or those that are doing retail, because Purity has some good experience in that. Do you think that they are making some mistakes? And for example, you go to South Africa, you find a company like Hollywood Bets having, I think, one of the biggest number of betting shops in Africa. You go to Nigeria, the company is called Bet Niger. They have, I think, some of the biggest number of shops in Africa. So why is this different from Kenya? Why is it that in Kenya you can't find a company that is operating in such a criteria whereby they are having winning like the biggest share in the market in retail? Purity, coming from the retail space, what do you think about this? What can the retail investors do better to make it, especially here in East Africa?
For the retail, I'll say it's a good platform when you have the online. In Kenya, it is not really doing that well because of the regulations. We understand very well the Kenyan regulations are very harsh for both online and retail, but for retail, it's quite capital intensive, and that makes investors or maybe the operators to feel like it takes time for them to be able to reap what you've invested in. And that's why most of the companies, they are going online, because online is easy. And with the mobile penetration that we currently have and the internet penetration to most of the places, you better do the offline, because for the online, for the retail, with the capital intensive and also the kind of product everyone will get there, it's not enough. So I think the thing that they need to work on is the products. If at all they'll have varieties of products like we have on the online, it will be a plus to them. But due to the regulations and also the investment part of it, it's quite a challenge.
Oh, thank you. Nice. And I think you brought up the issue of regulation. I wish they were here, but I think John is going to pass the message to them. So I think that there has been some bad blood between the regulators and the operators. That's why right now I think in Kenya, the operators are required to do tax returns like on a daily basis. There's a new regulation that has just come up that they need to file the returns by 1 a.m. on a daily basis. So what do you think? What can be done to make, like to bring a good relationship between the regulators and the operators? Because I know like in Tanzania, it's easier for an operator and a regulator to sit on the table and talk. But here in Kenya, I think it's not that easy. And maybe that's the scenario in other countries. So John, I think you can assist us by telling us what do you think can be done so that there will be some good regulations measures being put in place? Because I think what we are having is like we are treating the gambling sector as if it's somebody who is selling bang. Of course, okay, you want to regulate it, but you are over-regulating it. What can be done so that we make it conducive? Just as the director said, we want to make it conducive for the investor and also for the operator, because they are not coming here and opening the businesses for free. They are pumping in money. So how can they pump in money and then they lose it and then you say that you're protecting them? Yes, John, probably you can tell us how.
I don't work with the gaming board, neither do I have the capacity to talk on their behalf. But what I can say is that one, there need to be a consultative meetings between the operators and the board. That needs to be done. Before you come up with taxes, any directives, I think it's prudent to have a meeting with the operators, regulators, and probably even the software providers. So that if there has to be an API that has to be developed, so that the gaming board and the taxman can fetch data from your end, there needs to be a consultative meeting with even the software provider so that they know what addition do we have to add in our software. I think the issue is talking, to sit and talk. Kenyan market is the third largest gambling market in Africa. It's very over-regulated, I would say, but there are still companies that are making fortunes even with all those regulations. So what I believe in is, of course, being here, you will have to pay taxes. For this country to grow, we'll need taxes. But also the taxman and the regulator needs to sit with the operators so that they come up with frameworks on how to do all these taxes, because you can't come up with a directive without a framework on how to run it. If you want us to do taxes every day, then there have to be a framework. If I fail, what are the penalties? There need to be a framework. But I think of all the markets that I've been in Africa, Kenya is still the best market to invest on, owing to the fact that the internet penetration rate and mobile penetration rate is very high, and also this is the home of M-Pesa. All the payment models that you've seen in Africa all originated from here. Here we pay gas using M-Pesa, school fees, everything. You rarely find people in banks because you can get your money from the bank to your mobile money wallet and also push it back to the bank. So it's easy with that. And there are limits. You can transact over 3K USD a day, around such an amount. So it's very effective. The only need, I think, with the gaming board and the taxman is to involve more of the operators so that they can have a touch of it. I think that's all I would say.
Yes, I fully support you, because by you sitting with the regulator and the operator on the same table, and even consultants, I think it will give them some knowledge that they don't have, and we can help both the parties so that they can have an amicable relationship. So I think I'll push the next question to Purity, because she's in this space. She has been managing several employees over time. So this is the last question, Purity. Please, can you compare Africa to Europe? And then you check how the employees and the relations they are having with their employers. What do you think can we learn from Europe? Or do you think we are mature enough as a democracy, considering that we are looking at the entire of Africa? Just look at how the big companies in the world, the Ubers of this world, are treating their employees, and then bring it into the gambling space. Do you think that African gambling companies are giving their employees the best benefits? Because for you to be profitable, you must have a good and a happy team. So do you think this is happening, or if it's not, what can we learn from the rest of the world?
Thank you so much. When it comes to the employees, I'll say when you have happy employees and a healthy working environment, then even for investors, anyone, the African investors and the foreign investors, that will be a profitable business for you, because employees comes first, healthy working environment comes first. And according to the experience, I'll say when it comes to African managing companies, I'll say we are a bit rigid and a bit rigid when it comes to letting employees explore on their duties, because sometimes you'll find we want to do everything by ourselves and micromanage employee, limiting some experience or some knowledge to the employees, which makes the employees as well to feel like they are not really in a healthy environment. Comparing to the foreign or the Europe foreign investors, you'll find that they give you the opportunity and then they let you explore. And this gives a very healthy environment to all the staffs, to make sure that each and everyone knows their duty and responsibilities, and you let them explore on all that they can do. If at all you'll find any other talent from the same employee, it will be a plus for you, because I believe having one employee and keeping employees in your workspace, it's better than hiring. It's even much manageable on your resource, on your human resource, healthy human resource and finance resources as well, because you'll be keeping the knowledge and the new skills to the employees, other than having to recruit new with undesirable labor, and also having a lot of time to do the trainings and all that. So when it comes to foreign or international employees, I think for us Africans, we have a lot to be able to learn from the foreign investors. And this works to all investors. If you're an investor to any business, I will recommend that we have a healthy working environment for everyone, whereby we are not bosses when it comes to the African culture. We feel like I'm the boss, and then the employees should be like, you're just an employee. If we can all be leaders, because whenever I learn something and I pass it down to my junior staff, we all growing and will be having desirable results for each and every one and for the organization.
Thank you. John, in just 10 seconds, I think we need to touch on this because it's very important. I see we don't have time left. Just in 10 seconds, please tell us the best platforms that can work in Africa. What are some of the features that are necessary for your product to work? And I know you say that Africa is not one country, but there are some features which are shared in different countries. So probably you can just tell us, and then we take one question from the audience.
All right. On the product side, as I said, you need to understand each and every market. Get to know how is disparities of internet. Is internet penetration high, mobile penetration high? So you'll know how to package your product. That is one. Another thing is the availability of internet. We have issues of internet in Africa. So that means you'd want to have your software accessed the same way, the same experience that punters who are online are experiencing it, have it offline. That is by use of USSD. There have been someone from DLC who told us that despite high penetration of mobile, still the most efficient way of acquisition of customers is through USSD. So that is another one. Another thing that is very crucial when you're creating your product is also the customer service. Because most of the sites that are coming from Europe, you're doing your customer service from Europe. So there is live chat, but there is no call system. When it comes to Africa, we have our sluggish languages, we have native languages. You would want to have your customer services promote your product because they are very vital in every operation. Because these are the people who, if I can press a bet on your site, and whenever I have an issue that can be answered in the shortest time possible, I will prefer your site.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Just one question, kindly.
Thank you to everyone. John, I heard you mention that Kenya is still the best place to invest by far. But how do you go about encouraging an investor to invest in a country whereby the taxation laws, they keep on changing almost on an erratic and unpredictable basis? Because any investor in any industry is looking to invest in a country where there is predictability and stability over a sustained period of time. That's question number one. Question number two would be when somebody is trying to get a casino license, could you just briefly break it down for us as to what are the cost implications for someone to also get a casino license? Thank you.
Thank you. The last question from the gentleman at the back.
Let me start with this and then we can have yours. Okay, perfect. Yes, I'll still stand with what I said, that Kenyan market is by far the best. One, we've not been having issues of taxation. This market is very young. We're young that we went online at the end of 2012, 2013. And the issues of taxes that maybe we've shared these issues of taxes wrongly, we started having issues in 2019. Because this is when the taxman and the regulator were trying now to take control of the market. There have been consultative meetings before. At this time round, there are more than it was. We've had a sit down with the cabinet secretary who is responsible for the gambling activities. At least a good gesture that we are heading to the right direction. There have been meetings weekly with the top operators trying to come up with a streamline and a framework on how to run gambling in Kenya. So yes, we are in the process of making it good. So I still believe there is market to invest in here. So with time, probably maybe before the end of the year, I can't speak on the behalf of the board, but I think they have good intention. Madam Chair was here, and from the speech you can read between the lines. I think with time we'll be able to streamline the market to a point where it will be a good market for the investors. And as I said, it's the third largest gambling market in Africa.
So thanks, John.
I still have a question to answer.
John has one question, but we don't have time. Let's take that question, And because I know they have rates on the website, and or John can provide that information to you directly, because it's just prices for the license. Give us the last question, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Question for John related to product. You mentioned Opera Mini and the importance. There is even worse version of Opera, which is called Opera Extreme. Complete disaster for the product. And the question I have, so on one hand, we have these Opera versions which help a customer to save the data so that I, as a customer, don't spend as much data browsing websites. On the other hand, when we look into gambling, we know that usually 60 to 70% of revenues, they come from VIP clients, right? High rollers, guys who have money, men and women who have money. Thus, question, would you say that those VIP punters who obviously have money, and I'm pretty sure they are not thinking about how much do I spend on my data, would you still say that those VIP clients are into using those Opera Mini and Extreme versions or not?
So let me take that question. And it's good that you came to Africa to ask that question. If you could have searched it online, maybe you got a different answer. So this is it. Here in Africa, most of the punters are the low value, those who place low value bets, like those who bet with small amounts. The ones who bet with high amounts, probably you find them in casinos, or they are few. So the money that most of these governments are making from gambling is coming from the low punters. So I would say that from the question you asked, the answer is no. The VIP players are very few. So I think that should answer the question. That here in Africa, if you're coming to target these Africans here, you need to have a strategy. Either are you targeting the high punters or the low punters? But you need to know that the biggest number is the low punters. Thank you.
I think there's one more point. I think Judy here wants to make a clarification on something that was said.
Yes, please.
Judy, if I can let you have the microphone and you can speak up.
Yeah, thank you. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know what experience, I didn't get your name, you have had with the board, but I think we are one of the most open doors board that there is. If you have any question, if you have any discussions, if you have any clarifications, we are available on call and for meetings. So when you indicate that we are impossible to deal with, then I think that there's a problem. Because you could be talking about a different board. Ask John, who is just sitting next to you, how accessible BCLB is. So maybe it's important that we shed light that we are not difficult. We regulate. Of course, there cannot be friendship between a regulator and the person who they are regulating. That is why there is one. There are two different entities doing that. There cannot be friendship. Nobody wants to be regulated. However, the nature of the business demands there has to be regulation. And when you're regulating, you're not smiling, you're not laughing. You're collecting taxes, you're protecting vulnerable persons, you don't want irresponsible gaming. So we have to have a balance. Otherwise, if we are always laughing and partying, then we will have a gambling country. So I think it's important that we have that understanding and that the information that goes out there is that we are accommodating and we listen and we talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So thanks, John, thanks, Purity, and thanks to our beautiful panelists. Thank you.